Hi, thank you so much for clicking on my channel. I am Katie Brand and this is Tea Time True Crime with Katie. Tonight's story is not a well-known one, but recently it's been getting a lot of traction because of the Netflix series Into the Fire. The case of the lost daughter. I'll have the actual thumbnail right here. I definitely recommend this. This is produced by Charlize Theron, and I love her. So I actually was recommended this from somebody a while ago during one of my TikTok lives, and forgive me, I cannot remember which one recommended it. Something tells me it's B. B, thank you very much for the recommendation. She said the first time. And then recently, I went to go visit a friend, and she told me about this Netflix series called The Accident, which is, I believe, in Spanish. So there's English subtitles, but I believe you can dub them. Now, as I was looking at this series, I realize it is fiction, but that does not mean it is not a great show. It's very, I don't know, it just grabs you. It's a lot of episodes, like 10 episodes. But then when I started watching, I'm like, I need to really focus on, trying to get a podcast. Then because of that, I stumbled upon the fire documentary, which I was thinking, the fire, what does that mean? I thought it was an actual fire, but it was not metaphorical at all. So again, B, if you gave me this suggestion, I really appreciate you. If it was someone else, I appreciate you, because this, guys, I hope you guys are ready. This is going to be a lot. I have a trigger warning. Yeah. So we are going to talk about the case that is a closed adoption case that led to a monster. Also, you guys, I'm very close to the 100th episode of an actual podcast, even though if you've been here since the beginning, I've done many true crime videos, kind of like TikTok kind of content, short form, but the podcast means so much more to me. I started that in April of 2023, and now we're almost up to 100. So you're probably like, what is going on with your background? I know, it's a lot. I'm actually like messing with things right now. So if anything, you could play I Spy, because there's a lot going on, which I know could hurt me in the long run. I do apologize, but again, I'm still trying to set up the background. But other than that, enjoy, what you see. And if you're listening, I just have a lot going on. I got paintings. I got a Batman signal popcorn thing that lights up. I have my Himalayan salt lamp. I have my bear that's Sally from Nightmare Before Christmas. I have so many crystals, a neon sign, just a lot. But before we go on, I like to do little shout outs. I recently went to the Tidewater Horror Convention in Virginia Beach, and I stumbled upon a vendor, and their name is Hollywood Macabre. Okay, and they were really nice people, and I was very surprised how much their merchandise was very reasonable. I got a few things. If you don't know, I absolutely love The Crow, the new movie. What I say about that is not a remake. That is just a Crow movie. It is not a remake. It is just a Crow movie, because you could not remake The Crow, in my personal opinion. So I got this awesome Draven, Detroit, Michigan, It Can't Rain All the Time kind of oven dish towel. I'm not using it for a dish towel. I just have it hanging by my oven. I love it. Then I have these gorgeous coasters that are Beetlejuice, the first Beetlejuice, not the new one, okay? And just really awesome coasters. I love the first Beetlejuice. It is more than just a movie to me. It is my childhood. I have Miss Argentina. I have, of course, Beetlejuice. And these are very well done. I think 4 of these, which are very well made, I think it was for $20. And these are beautiful coasters. Or you can make them a stand. Here's Lydia reading the book, Handbook for the Recently Deceased. Yes. So as someone who has abilities, who can feel, who has, whatever you believe, I feel like Beetlejuice just made it less scary in a way. But then I'm recently told by one of my friends that Beetlejuice was actually a dark film. It was scary. So I'm not sure if I did not get the memo on that, because I never thought Beetlejuice was scary. Beetlejuice was my happy movie. The new one, I did enjoy. Okay. It was definitely for this generation. It was not for my generation. If you haven't seen it, I recommend seeing it because I'm a huge Tim Burton fan. I do love Winona Ryder. And, of course, Michael Keaton. Michael Keaton, for me, made the movie, okay? He was Beetlejuice. He did not seem like he was in his 60s. I'm very happy I watched it. It was in IMAX. I feel if you want to watch an IMAX movie, definitely do it. I mean, I think the movie was great in IMAX, but it had a lot going on, kind of like the background of what you're seeing right now. It has a lot going on, but let me know what you think down below. If you saw Beetlejuice, what did you think about it? I definitely want to watch it again, but with my friends. Would this be like how many times I watched the older one for a good time? No, not even close. But again, it was a high budget movie, and you definitely see the budget in the film. I want more, I want more, but yeah, we'll see what happens. So let's get on with the case, guys. It is very, very upsetting. I hope you're ready. And please watch the documentary, because I'm mostly doing this case because the killer that I'm going to be talking about, I believe there are way more people that have been affected. All right? So here we go. Kathy Turkanian was a mother who always wondered what happened to her daughter. She was from an abusive household, and she was labeled a teenage runaway. Now, Kathy ran away from home at 14 years old because her mother was too physical. When I hear that, I think, she hit her quite a few times, and enough is enough. Kathy left at 14 and did not get married, but she had a child when she was 16. So she got pregnant like a year later. Well, she has this child, and she named this child Alexis Miranda Badger. And she had this child June 23rd, 1974, which makes Alexis a Cancer. Now, she absolutely loved her child more than anything. She was just the cutest little girl. But unfortunately, Kathy was a child herself. She was a teenager. She was 16 years old. And she was pretty much forced. I mean, she kind of was forced. I mean, her family, her mom, when she got in contact with her, was basically driving it in her head that how can you take care of this child? You can't even take care of yourself. You should put her up for adoption, and she will have a better life. Well, Kathy, it was the hardest thing she ever could do. She put her daughter up for adoption at only 9 months old. I can't imagine what Kathy was feeling. I don't ever want to imagine. And I do not judge her for what she did because I don't know. I'm not a mother yet, but I would love to be one day. And that must have been a very, very hard decision for Kathy. But the fact is, it was a closed adoption, and she had no idea what happened to her daughter. But all her life, she always wondered about her daughter. She always waited for her to look for her. Now, 35 years later, okay, before that, she did put her daughter in the adoption system, like I said, a closed adoption in Norfolk, Virginia. Okay. Now, 35 years later, let's get back to that. 2010. Kathy received a letter telling her that actually her daughter, you would be thinking like what I was thinking, like, oh my gosh, she has found her mom. They're going to be reunited. Horrifically, you guys, she received a letter telling her that her daughter had been missing for 21 years. They actually had a Jane Doe in a field that was brutally beaten and assaulted, raped and left in a ditch. Now, she was a Jane Doe and they needed Kathy's DNA. I know. Insane, right? Not the letter that we all ever want. To go back to Kathy a little bit, so Kathy was a runaway, and years later, she met this wonderful guy named Edward Turkanian. Now, the way she explains how they met, she says the old-fashioned way, in a bar. Now, they met in a bar. She was a nurse at the time in New Orleans. Ed actually, they had a great conversation. I'm not sure what his career was, but I think he was in the military. I'm not sure, but they did meet, and Kathy, they just had a connection right away. Now, they thought they would never see each other again from the bar, but 3 days later, they found each other again, and this time they did not let each other go. In fact, she got her dog, rented a U-Haul, and moved up to where he lived, which is in Massachusetts. 10 weeks into their relationship, they got married in Virginia, a little chapel, and they are still married to this day. So it is the perfect example of when you know, you know. Kathy also stated that she never received unconditional love in her past, but when she married her husband, she received unconditional love, and she believes it is because of her husband is why she wants to look for her daughter, because ever since she got that letter, she was on a mission to find her daughter. So I think that is really, really sweet that Ed was the kind of good husband, okay, that showed her love and is like, we need to find your daughter. And man, what they found, they were not ready for it. But Kathy and Ed were on a mission, and they started going on the computer and trying to find, her daughter. When she named her Alexis Miranda Badger, she found somebody that was missing in 1989 and tried to, because again, Alexis was 9 months old when her mother gave her up for an adoption. So Kathy didn't even know what she looked like. She just remembered her as a baby. So she decided to go on the internet and trying to find people that were missing around that time, around that date. And then she started finding internet sleuths that could help her. And she realized that someone named Andrea Michelle Bowman, that was her new name. That's who she was named. And Kathy was like, okay, I found out her name by these internet sleuths, so let's go find her. And she figures out that she was adopted by Brenda and Dennis Bowman. And these parents, they were married in 1971, and they seem to be high school sweethearts. According to interviews with the family, Brenda was only with one guy, okay? And that was Dennis, and that was her first boyfriend, which, no offense to anybody who marries their boyfriend from high school, but as I explain this case and story, this is definitely a red flag, okay? So Brenda realized that she couldn't have children, so she got this gift by adopting a 10-month-old child who was Alexis, but they renamed her to Andrea. As Kathy was trying to figure out who her daughter was and where she is, Andrea, with the pictures, she seemed to be like a rebel. She kind of skipped class a little bit. But this is when her teenage years happened. I feel like when we all hit teenage years, we all are kind of rebels. We feel like we know it all, but we really don't know jack. But when she was a little girl, she was the sweetest little girl. She had the cutest smile. She wore glasses and she had beautiful, beautiful eyes. And you can definitely tell her eyes were because of her biological mother, because her biological mother, Kathy, and her had the same eyes. Andrea was very funny, and she would really try hard to kind of fit in. So as, Kathy is finding this information because she starts going on Facebook and putting a post up, have you seen or have you ever talked to, Andrea Michelle Bowman? And then all of a sudden, all these messages start pouring in. They're like, yes, I knew your daughter. Yes, she was a classmate of mine. Yes, she was a neighbor. So it was really awesome that Kathy was starting to know her daughter through these people. And she, like I told you about the web sleuths, okay? She also found out that there were rumors and sightings of Andrea, but the trail just went cold. Now, the web sleuth Carl Koppelman, in 2010, he kicked this whole case in gear. Now, Koppelman was literally just this guy on his hobby, guys. His hobby was to find and solve cold cases, which I find incredible. He would look up these missing people or help families, and he would, get research and the dates together, and he would try to find the killer, the culprit, or even who the people are. So remember in the beginning, I talked about the Jane Doe in the field? Well, that is kind of how Carl and Kathy started talking, because he was trying to figure out who the Jane Doe in the field was. It was around that time where another teenager went missing, which was Andrea. So they put two and two together. Kathy was horrified, thinking, oh my gosh, my daughter was beaten and raped and just shoved in a ditch. She died a brutal way as a teenager. But I want to give her, I want to give my daughter peace if that is her daughter. Well, fortunately, you guys, when she did the DNA, it was not her daughter. It was a relief, but it was still really sad because, again, they don't understand what happened. Carl and Kathy are on a mission to figure out what happened to the daughter. And it's wild because in the beginning, like I said, Kathy was a runaway at 14 years old. Her biological daughter, Andrea, went missing and was considered a runaway at 14 years old also. So I just thought that was kind of like a creepy coincidence. When I talk about the Bowmans, they actually lived in two places. They lived in Holland and Hamilton, Michigan. Okay? Now, there is a detective investigator there named Chris Haverdink. Chris Haverdink wanted the case of Andrea solved. Okay? Now, when he went in to become a detective, he actually knew her personally. They were in the same class. So when he talked to Kathy, she realized that he was not the typical 80s cop that dropped the ball and is not going to care about her daughter. Chris actually did. So as Kathy is developing Andrea pages, and getting messages from people that she knew, Kathy actually received a message that would horrify her. In 2013, from Metta. Metta messaged her saying that she was abducted at 6 years old, and her daughter cases may be connected. I'm going to take a tea time break. All right. The cramps are strong, people. So when that happens, I drink raspberry leaf tea. And I should put honey in it, but I didn't this time. It's just pure raspberry leaf tea. Drinking from a gift that someone gave me. It's a mug that says, "Freaks like me drink tea." So I was like, that's definitely relevant. Oh man, that is fantastic. All right, so after Kathy was talking to Metta, now they were talking and they were both researching Andrea's cases, and Kathy's telling her about the adoptive parents. Well, Metta sees the picture of Dennis Bowman, and the chills on the back of her neck was real. Okay? I mean, goose pimples, goosebumps, whatever you say. But Metta, who is much older now, looked at that photo and said that was the man who had raped her and abducted her. Kathy was horrified. She had no idea what she was getting into. First of all, you had this mother who was just trying to find her daughter, and then it goes into a whole different rabbit hole that nobody saw coming. Kathy and Ed, her husband, they actually started to go to Michigan in 2013 to find more answers, to talk to Andrea's friends, to get more research. And also, they would meet with Carl, the online sleuth, that would help blow this case open, that to know that, she may not be alive anymore. She's not just missing, even though people were thinking, well, Andrea was a rebel. She was, a teenager and she ran away. But Kathy knew in her heart that was not the case, and that her daughter was no longer alive. So when she went to Michigan, she wanted answers. And like I said, she had all kinds of meetings with people who knew Andrea, her old friends. And she even met up with the police department and also Chris Haverdink to solve the case. Now, in the beginning, when she found out about Dennis Bowman and she found out where he lived, she stalked the Bowmans. Like, stalked. Now, Carl actually told Kathy about this law called FOIA, F-O-I-A, which, thank you, Carl. I'm going to look into that as well. I don't know how much coin it is, but I would love to find out about my biological father as well. But enough about me. FOIA, F-O-I-A, it's called Freedom of Information Act, where you can actually have a form. You get a form and you send them a lot of money, she says, Kathy says, and they will send you a stack of records on that person. Now, she bought Dennis Bowman's records, and she was appalled by what she found. According to the records, his first arrest was breaking and entering, stalking a coworker. He was caught. He was found with a duffel bag with woman's underwear, a sawed-off shotgun, and a mask. He only spent a year in jail. County jail. 1980, May 23rd. He was 31 years old at the time. Dennis attacked a teenager. He drove over to a teenager, and the girl was on her bike. Yes, she was bike riding. And he started yelling at her, "Pull over, get off your bike, and start heading towards the woods." Now, the teenager is shocked, okay? She is just like sitting on her bike, just can't even move, and probably wondering, did he just say what I thought he said? I mean, she was terrified, like fight or flight. Like you don't You don't know how you're going to act. And all of a sudden, she sees a gun and he fires the gun and it went past her. Then Dennis starts yelling again, "God damn it, get off your bike and start heading towards the woods." Again, she doesn't move. He shot the gun again, this time towards her foot, and the dirt kicked up in front of her. He was still yelling at her that he was going to blow a hole right through her. All of a sudden, you guys, out of nowhere, there was a truck that was right behind her driving, and she saw her. And this teenage girl started waving her hands so fast until the truck was slowing down, and the lady who was driving the truck let her in the truck and put her bike in the back, and they drove away. Dennis was caught, and by the time the police got him, Dennis said, "You gotta let me go. I have to go pick my daughter up from school." End quote. For that crime, which is attempted sexual assault, okay, he was sentenced to 5 to 10 years. He was actually released January 31st, 1986. Andrea was only 11 years old at the time. Brenda, remember I mentioned her? That was his wife, and she actually stayed with him. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, she stayed married to him even knowing what had happened. Yeah, I know. She stayed with him. And she even took little Andrea to prison to visit her stepdad. What? You take a little kid? Yeah. Kathy, man, when she was hearing all these records, she was hearing tapes and pretty much like what you can get from the court system, she was on a mission. And when she heard and saw all of this, you guys, Kathy was a force to be reckoned with. Okay? Like, oh my gosh. People called her a pit bull with lipstick. Okay, queen, go off. Okay? Kathy would stalk. Like when I said in the beginning, she would stalk the Bowmans. It was absolutely insane. She would call them all the time. She would go over to nearby places and call, the Bowman's murderers, and basically called Dennis a murderer and said that he killed her daughter, which there is no proof of that, but she was telling people, Dennis killed my daughter and he buried her in the backyard. Now, of course, the police are like, listen, we cannot go into someone's residence on just a hunch and start digging up their backyard. Like, you just can't do that. You got to have evidence. But Kathy wasn't letting down. She was not at all letting down. Definitely, guys, watch the documentary. Please, I hope you feel the tenacious, woman Kathy is. And she's pretty incredible. It must be a Kathy thing. Because, my mom, her name is Kathy too. And she's a badass. My mom, strong woman. Okay? You do not mess around with my mom. She is a hard case to crack. Okay? Just keeping it real. Sorry, Mom, if you're watching this. I mean, all respect. But, damn, Mom. You're strong as hell. And so is this Kathy. So, Kathy is harassing the Bowmans, and finally Brenda is enough is enough. Okay? I'm gonna press charges for harassment. And again, people were on Kathy's side because Dennis was not very well liked. He wasn't. He was considered there was something off about him kind of guy. There was something off about him. Now, Kathy, she even put pictures of Andrea all over the city, everywhere. And not only that, she bought this huge billboard missing billboard of her daughter. So when Dennis would drive home from work, he would see that every day, and she was just waiting for him to crack, waiting for it to just eat at him. Yeah, I know. Kathy, badass. She is a BAMF. Badass motherfucker, I swear. All of a sudden, as this is all is happening, someone calls Kathy, and she actually says they got him. They got Dennis. He's arrested. And Kathy is so excited. She is just like, yes, the monster. I knew he killed my daughter. But then she realized he is not arrested for the murder of Andrea. He actually is arrested for a murder that happened in 1980 in Norfolk, Virginia. I know. You could have knocked me over with a feather. I was like, what? This beautiful girl, her name was Kathleen Doyle. She was a fighter pilot's wife. Her case became cold. 40 years it was not solved. She was only 25 years old. She had long auburn hair with green eyes, and she was only like 4'11". Yes, little petite Irish complexion girl. She lived in Cape Cod, Norfolk, Virginia. She actually had a kitten that was her and her newly husband's, so-called fur baby. She literally just got married in December of 1979, but her husband was deployed in September 1980. So he was not there, and I'm sure the guilt, ate at him, because while he's there fighting for our country, his wife is getting brutally murdered. How this poor woman was killed was awful. She was found in her house by her friends, which again, I cannot imagine finding your best friend in this state that Kathleen was found. She was found in her bedroom, and the bedroom was all in disarray. The mattress was pushed off the bed, where where the mattress, and then there is the spring mattress. You know how there's two parts. Forgive me, guys. I don't know why I'm spacing, but the room was in disarray. There definitely was a struggle. There definitely was a fight. There was a burn mark on her cheek. She was horribly raped, and she had stab wounds on the back of her body and the front of her body. She was gagged with a blue leotard in her mouth, and she had electrical cord wrapped around her neck. Her death was by asphyxiation. And when the police went to go check for evidence, they saw Lincoln Logs. Lincoln Logs were a child's toy, something that I feel like it's like a Lego kind of, and it connects, but it was like logs. I don't know if you guys remember back in the 80s, the Lincoln Logs. I believe my brother played with them. I do remember those. But weirdly, a Lincoln Log, they were thrown in the bathroom's trash, which the investigators thought that was very odd, because that is a children's toy, and they did not have children. But there was a burn mark on the end of a Lincoln Log. I know it still doesn't really make sense. Not at all. As the police were investigating, they actually found a phone, and when they were wondering, when the friends called 911, how come, the dispatcher could not hear the friends who were calling for help? Well, that is because the perpetrator actually took the mouthpiece off the phone. So he dismantled the phone. And tragically, Kathleen's murder really affected families in Norfolk, Virginia. Really affected her aunts, her mother. They just couldn't get out of bed for a long time. But her father was tenacious, just like Kathy. And he was going to the investigators all the time asking about his daughter's case. There was DNA evidence, but at that time there was not the amazing scientific technology that we have now. Tragically, her father, who was very, very up there in the Navy, okay, forgive me, but he was, I believe, a captain. I don't know, but he was very up there, like in rank. And he never figured out what happened or like who killed his daughter. Tragically, he died knowing never killed his daughter. He died in 2016, still fighting every day, never forgetting about his Kathleen. And I find that so tragic. That a man died never knowing the answers, and that a family never knew the answers until 40 years later. Now, if you guys are my Facebook friends, which I appreciate you, that's awesome, you would know that I have a birthday coming up. And you know how that Facebook has, some kind of foundation or organization that, I would I would love for people to donate to. Well, it's called the DNA Doe Project. It's genealogy technology of DNA. The reason why we finally caught Kathleen's killer is because of this technology. If you're wondering, well, Katie, what is DNA technology? I mean, the genealogy technology. Well, do you know how you see that you have the Ancestry.com, 23andMe, who am I? Am I part Japanese or am I part African? Yes, that technology. When you spit in a little tube, you send it in. Well, they're now using that technology to find people who have murdered people and the cases have run cold. Yeah, incredible. It's wild how when Andrea's case finally picked back up after 31 years because of Carl, Kathy, and the new detective in Michigan, and then all of a sudden you have in 2019 that you have 1980s Kathleen case coming up. Yeah. You have Detective John Smith. I know, I'm not making it up. I love this dude. Detective John Smith, okay? Yeah, it's in Virginia. And if you guys know the horrible first human trafficking story of Pocahontas, or the nice Disney version, John Smith was the romantic interest, but of course the real story, he was not a romantic interest. But I don't want to go on a tangent, but I thought that was kind of ironic. His name was John Smith. Well, John Smith was really trying to solve the Kathleen Doyle case. And actually, as he was going through these cold cases, he stumbled upon Kathleen Doyle. And he went through the genealogy technology and saw there were 31 people with the same kind of, not 100% DNA, guys. It's like a part of a DNA kind of thing. It could be like a family member, somebody in the same chromosome. Okay, that's how they find these perpetrators. Well, out of nowhere, John Smith is going to a conference, and that is where he meets a detective in Michigan. They start talking, and they kind of realize that they're looking for the same guy, because on the bottom of John Smith's list is Dennis Bowman. So John calls Dennis Bowman's, like, pretty much the police department that's close to him in Michigan, and the detective is like, that is probably your guy. I know his family. That's probably him. So John Smith is like, I'm going to go to Michigan. So he's going to Michigan, and now they are trying to get DNA evidence from Dennis Bowman. So they get Dennis Bowman, Brenda, and they bring them in for like questioning, because around this time, because Kathy is getting things rolling, Dennis is like, have you found my daughter? Have you found my daughter? But little did he know that he is being arrested for something else. He was arrested for the murder of Kathleen Doyle. I know. Insane. Insane, right? Couldn't believe it. Well, I could, especially when I read about his recent, not recent arrest, but his criminal history is not a squeaky clean one. Which it blows my mind that Brenda stayed with him, even though she knew what he did. Yeah. It's all in the documentary, guys. It's 2 episodes. Watch it. Okay. So they get the Bowmans in the actual, the police department. Now, everyone's having a meeting and they get everybody water, and Dennis is drinking that water, okay? When Dennis is drinking that water, the police detective takes it and immediately tests it for DNA, and it is 100% match. So Dennis is arrested. And they are telling Brenda, and it's really hard for her to believe. She can't believe it. And it's just awful. And, she's just bringing up, people who are liars, and like Andrea was lying, because then we find out, we found out from her, her friends, which sadly, Andrea, no one believed her, but Andrea actually asked for help. She went to counselors and saying that her father was molesting her. And I don't know why back in the 80s, when you accuse someone of molesting you and you put all of you guys in the same room, and then the counselor's like, what's going on here? Would you like to talk about what we talked about? In front of the freaking accuser? That blows my mind. That blows my mind. And these kids, like I said, back in the day, they really tried to help her. They gave her food. They let her have shelter for a few days. They did everything they could to help her. And they actually told her to run away. But at that time, Brenda had a miracle. Even though she was told she couldn't get pregnant, you guys, she ended up having a daughter named Vanessa Bowman. And when Andrea went missing, Vanessa was only 14 months old. Andrea basically told her friends that, or Alexis, however you want to call her. I keep saying Andrea because that's how her friends know her. That's who she was for 14 years. So it's hard to say Alexis because that's what her biological mother named her, but for 14 years, she was Andrea, and that's how people knew her. That's why I keep saying Andrea. So if Kathy comes across this podcast, I say that name with no disrespect at all. It's just how people knew her. And, they found out that there was definitely issues of abuse. But again, nobody seemed to believe Andrea. And she told her friends that I'm not running away, I'm not leaving because I need to protect my little sister. And she did everything for Vanessa. She fed her, she clothed her, she carried her. She absolutely loved her little sister. And she was scared that when her little sister grew up, that her father would start touching her as well. So Andrea was extremely strong. I can see where Andrea got it from, probably her biological mother. Now, to fast forward to 2019, you arrest Dennis Bowman. You arrest him, okay? So when that happens, they need to go and get more evidence. So the police go to Dennis and Brenda's house in Michigan and start digging up the backyard. And they did not find any more evidence for the Kathleen Doyle case or the Andrea case. But Kathy, you guys, she just kept thinking, she is there. My daughter is in the backyard and Dennis Bowman killed her. But again, the police are like, Kathy, there is no proof. There's no proof. Okay? But Kathy, she would not give up. She would not. One day, we do not know why, but I think it's because Dennis knows his goose is cooked. because he's going down for Kathleen's murder, okay? He tells Brenda that his daughter, their daughter, Andrea, she's actually no longer alive, and she has been dead since the beginning. Brenda can't even, believe it. She just is so shocked. She cries. She's so surprised. And I think that's so cruel because Brenda was looking for her. There was missing posters. She had the hope. And, that's what Dennis was saying. He's like, I just wanted to keep giving you the hope. But she actually has been dead for a very long time. Now, throughout the documentary, it's like cat and mouse with the detectives because Dennis is a horrible master manipulator. He is a fucking monster, 100%. So Dennis finally, says that, it was an accident, and he's in tears saying it, but, he came upstairs and him and Andrea had a fight in March 1989, and he hit her. He hit her across the face, and she fell backwards down the stairs and broke her neck, and he said there was nothing he could do. So he grabbed her body, he hid her in a little barn shed area behind the house, started burning her clothes and a bag and her coat, and he called the police, and he said, my daughter is missing. Well, the police searched, they did a police report, but, Dennis basically said she was a runaway and there was no, proof, they saw that things were missing and they believed Dennis. And tragically, her case went cold and she was considered a runaway. But what he actually did, guys, we honestly do not know. I think he personally threw her down the stairs because she talked about getting molested by him. I think he threw her down the stairs, and yes, she may have broken her neck. But the way he described how he got rid of the body to Brenda was kind of romanticized in a way. He talked about wrapping her in a beautiful sheet and sprinkling cinnamon on the sheet and wrapping her body in red ribbon. But it was all lies, because when he finally told them where Andrea was, Kathy couldn't even bear it. Andrea was in the backyard. The police did not go farther enough in the yard, and Kathy was right the whole time. She was in the backyard. She was in pieces. She was wrapped in trash bags. And there was a whole bunch of dirty diapers that was on top of the body. I can't imagine, you guys, Kathy hearing that. She already feels guilty about letting her daughter get adopted because she thought she would have a better life. But now she hears that her daughter was beaten to death, probably, and dismembered and thrown in the backyard like she was nothing but trash. It was horrific, you guys. Absolutely horrific. And he was charged with Andrea's murder, and he has, in 2022, Norfolk, Virginia, they were trying to plead with him, saying, hey, if you tell us where the body is, you can you can go to Michigan prison to be closer to Brenda and Vanessa. Well, he fell for it, which at the same time, I'm not mad at the police, because he spent so many years hurting people, especially women, but he fell for it, ladies and gentlemen. So when he got, prosecuted and thrown in jail, he got 35 to 50 years in prison in Norfolk, Virginia. Yep. And he is there to this day. In the documentary, Kathy wanted her daughter's remains. But tragically, Brenda, who I wouldn't even consider a fucking mother, because if you are around when your daughter is abused and you do jack shit about it, you're not a mother. Yeah. There was even abuse in front of the friends. Yes. Right in front of the friends. And the mom didn't do anything. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. And you still stayed with this monster even though he was accused. No, he wasn't accused. I'm sorry. He spent time in prison for attempted rape on a teenager. And you still stayed married with him and had a little child in the home. You're no mother. You are not any mother at all. And I think Brenda should be some kind of accomplice. But tragically, you guys, there has been nothing on her. It's all on Dennis. Which she claims that she'll love Dennis till the end, no matter what. Even though she found out that he murdered their daughter and horribly killed that woman in 1980. And also did that to a teenager. And he in prison also exclaimed that before him and her got married, he went to San Diego and raped a woman. Then after they got married, he went to San Diego again and raped 2 women. And then years after that, he raped a woman in a trailer park. He did not give names. Yeah. And she's just like, I don't know who he is. But yet she still loves him and she's there for him. That is the craziest shit I think I have heard in a long time. What do you guys think about Brenda? I mean, I think she is devoted, but she's also cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. Are you out of your mind? And she did something so horrible to Kathy, which you guys will probably shrug your shoulders because you might be like, is that big of a deal though? It is a big fucking deal. So back to Andrea's remains. Andrea's remains were cremated because that is what Brenda wanted. And Brenda, unfortunately, is considered Andrea's mother. So she received the remains. She gave half of the remains to Kathy. And Kathy was beside herself. It was like she was getting chopped up all over again. I'm sorry. Kathy is still trying to fight for the other remains. Brenda just doesn't have a soul. I'm sorry. I want to know her birthday. Like, what the fuck is she? Like, I don't understand it. I don't get it. So if you're wondering, okay, so I think I know the main reason for your podcast. Yes, those women who were raped in different states, perhaps murdered. There is more information out there. Norfolk, Virginia police and also Michigan police feel like he is one of the worst serial sexual offenders in a long time. And they really believe there are more people out there. And I do not like to say the V word, you know that, but I have to in this case. There are more victims out there. And they need to speak up. And please know that they are not alone. And I know there are more people out there because when this woman was murdered the way she was in 1980, that was not a one-time murder, guys. That was somebody who knew what the fuck he was doing. His excuse for that, you guys ready? He was on military leave at a bar down the street, even though Kathleen lived in a really nice, quaint Cape Cod home in Norfolk, Virginia back in the 80s by a church. There was a bar down the street, and he said he was drunk as a skunk. Drunk. And he stumbled upon her house, and as he saw all the lights were off, there were no cars in the garage, even though he's a dumbass, because there could be a car in the garage. He's more than dumbass, guys. He's fucking evil. Anyway. And he had a lock pick, and he thought, oh, I'm going to get there's got to be some loose money. There's nobody home. So he broke in with the key lock or something like that. It was a pen lock. What the heck was it? I'll have a picture right here to show you. But he broke it open with that. And he went into her house and went in her kitchen and went in the cookie jar to find money. and then wandered around her house and went into her bedroom, and she stood up screaming, fighting for her life. And he says he accidentally stabbed her with the tool that he broke in her house with, but it was an accident. And, he said, "Bye, lady, see you later," or something like that, and she was alive. And the detectives were like, bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Bullshit. He just kept making stories. He is like the worst manipulator, the worst liar, and he is like haunting my dreams. And I appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. I appreciate you. And Dennis Bowman, he does have many people out there that I know have not received justice, and I pray that they receive justice. Thank you very much for listening or watching. Please know that you are loved and you are cherished. And like my mom always says, whatever happens in the dark will always come to light. She probably got it from a book or a movie or something, but I remember that's what my mom said, and that has always stuck with me. So until next time, guys, if you are fascinated by true crime, and if you want to be the voice for the voiceless, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also the bell for the notifications. That little click just means so much to me, and all of us can grow and become a platform to help people and make a difference in this world, because, the world's on fire right now. So I feel like what we can do is to be nice and kind to one another. Thank you. I appreciate it. Bye.